You know, I like it when I learn something new or several things new every single day. This one came out of the blue. Who knew that there were different kinds of potash? Well, Mark Lackey did, Senior VP at CHF Capital Markets. Mark, there's what they call SOP, sulfate of potash,
right,
and there's MOP,
right,
muriate of potash.
So, Pat, most people that have watched the networks, watched this show, they know of Potash Corp Agrium. Those guys produce MOP, muriate, which is about 90% of the potash in the world. And the interesting thing is it trades at a much lower price than the SOP. SOP, I'd say about 10% of the total potash is SOP, and that trades at a big premium for a number of reasons. The big reason is that you can't use the chloride-sensitive crops, which are fruit and vegetables to a large degree, really can't use the muriate. Muriate's fine in things like rice and cereals and soybeans. But when you try to go down to all the fruits and vegetables and nuts, tea, tobacco, you really, if you're going to do anything, you need SOP, or you're better off not to do anything from a potash viewpoint.
Okay.
So that's why I started looking very long and hard at the SOP market and thinking it's hard to find anybody who's in this business. So, as I said, the big advantage being that you have this premium because there is a definite need for potash if you can use it, because it strengthens roots and it moves nutrients along. So having looked a lot high and low, I could only really find one SOP producer that I liked that was in a jurisdiction I liked.
Oh, okay. This is this Potash Ridge Corporation?
That's right, Pat. It's a Toronto-based company. I think they have a pretty unique opportunity to develop and mine and process potash in Utah. And what they have is an SOP deposit. They've now got to the point where they just had their 43-101 technical report released. And now they're in the process, they're just going to get their permits here in Utah. So I like the jurisdiction, I like the management. The funny thing is the stock got beat up last year when all the other potash stocks went down, which tells me that people didn't differentiate in the marketplace. That in fact this price is over 50% higher than the MOP price, and yet people were treating this stock like it's an MOP player.
We know there's a lot of potash, MOP, I presume, in Canada. Is there a lot of SOP around?
No. And that's the thing. There's not a lot of SOP around. It's, as I said, they found it in Utah. I know that there's some in New Mexico. There's very little of it in a place like Saskatchewan. There's some in Germany. There's some in Africa. Some of the African countries I'm not going to mention because they're not really jurisdictions I'd want to necessarily be in. So I think this gives these guys a unique opportunity that they're in a great area. They've got what looks like a terrific project. And so I think this is one that people should certainly have on their radar screens and probably should be investing in.
Never heard of it, and I've learned that. Yep. And now you're going to enlighten me on canola as well.
Well, that's right. You know, people look at canola and they say, you know, what do you like canola, Mark? Well, I like canola because it's a superior oil to corn flour,
certainly
to coconut.
A lot better since they changed the name from rapeseed.
Well, that's true too. So I think at the end of the day, the issue here is that the canola market last year got up to 18 million tons. It's now at the highest level it's ever been. We're seeing huge growth in Canada and in terms of production. And the reason is that we're getting better efficiencies here from farmers. And the second point is look at the demand. I mean, the American Heart Association and the FDA have both suggested that canola is a superior situation because it reduces saturated fats and they don't like trans fats. And of course, when canola burns at a higher temperature, so it's better than some of the other oils that are going to start smoking on you. It doesn't transfer any flavor. So I would suggest that it is really one of the best cash crops that we have in Canada. And interestingly enough, the way we're trying to play this, Pat, is not with a canola producer, but with somebody who's into streaming. So people say, what's streaming? Well, that's kind of a concept that came out of the mining business. So an Eric Sprott or Silver Wheaton, you get money from them, and your deal is you give them so much production for so long at a prescribed price. And this is exactly what Input Capital is doing. They'll go to a farmer and say, look, if you don't want to go to your friendly banker, you can come to me, and you allow me to acquire a fixed amount of your production at a fixed price over a certain number of years.
Oh, like a forward contract for them.
Exactly. It's kind of like a royalty or a forward contract.
Yeah.
And they have about 6.1 years as their typical contract, and I think they got about 17,000 tons right now from last year's harvest. So I think this is a unique way to play a great market of canola because I don't know any other way to really play it in terms of the equity market other than a company like this which, as I said, think of it as like a silver wheaton if you were to understand the concept of a streaming or royalty company in the mining sector. I can't find another one in the agricultural sector that does this.
Wow, two unique ideas. Now you're going to go into Green Star Agricultural Corporation.
Right, and the reason I chose Green Star today is that this is a very unique play. First of all, the company trades at 3 times earnings and trades on the venture. It pays a dividend that yields 4%. So for those of you who want something that's relatively risk averse, this is certainly much different than anything else you're going to see on the venture network. Okay, well, Pat, they're into the distribution and production of basically fruits and vegetables. And they produce them, they lease the land in China, and a lot of their produce goes into the local markets in China. China is, as I said before, the largest consumer of fruits and vegetables in the world. But what they've also done is they've gotten into the export market. And the area that intrigues me is tomato paste. And they're very big here. In fact, I know it may not be exciting to some people, but they're going to actually have a 5-fold production increase in their tomato paste in the next 2 years because of acquisitions that they have recently made. The timing couldn't be any better. Right now, you've got a 100-year drought in California. It seems like, and the last bad drought was in the 70s. It seems like whenever Jerry Brown's the governor, there's a bad drought. And so Mr. Brown said the other day he's going to ration water. So the farmers are not dumb. They will not grow crops that are water intensive. Tomatoes are among the most water intensive. So you're going to see a huge decline in the tomato production out of California this year. How long the drought lasts, who knows? But the fact is, Green Star is sitting in perfect position now because they're a major producer of tomato paste and they're getting much larger. And this is a market in which there's going to be a relative shortage of tomatoes coming out of California, which is one of the biggest areas of tomato production in the world.
Wow. I could ask you a question about Leamington, Ontario, but I won't. We've run out of time. Mark, great to have you on.
Great to be here, Pat.
Mark Lackey joining us, CHF Capital. Comes every week, and he comes at this time with some unique ideas. Don't go away. We're going to come right back with more unique ideas. Christina Bliss is going to talk about what's happening in Ontario politics.